Hey, you know what could make this game full of flamethrowers, killer turkeys, and a diabetic bear named Cheeseburger so much better? Why, social and political commentary about white nationalism, gender inequality, the Second Amendment, and the opioid epidemic, of course. So if you guys didn't know, Far Cry 5 released recently, and as I said, almost a year ago, this game has generated a lot of salt, a lot of spice, if you will. Shortly after the game's release, tons of major publications blasted the game for not being political enough. Basically, these reviewers agree the game doesn't have much to say about political issues, and I guess that's a huge problem. Yes, we've reached that point where a game has garnered controversy because it's not controversial enough. God help us. If you live under a rock or something like that and don't know what Far Cry is, this game isn't too much different from other entries in the series, except it takes place in Montana instead of an exotic location. It's an open-world first-person shooter where you play as a deputy trying to quell an uprising of an insane religious cult. And there's a lot of freedom to tackle missions how you see fit, progress your character, and explore the world. It's actually quite enjoyable. I'm having a lot of fun with it. But how fun the game is doesn't matter to a lot of reviewers, apparently. Especially not Polygon, our favorite. Polygon, despite believing Far Cry 5 is very enjoyable, with a beautiful and finely tuned open world, gave the game only a 6.5 out of 10, because the reviewer Ben Kuchera apparently thinks that there's not enough political posturing in the game. In other words, another good product is suffering because it's not woke enough. Imagine my shock. Seriously, some of Ben Kuchera's comments in the review are just, the points he makes are utterly ridiculous. In the game, you shoot these zombie-like cultists known as angels. They're hopped up on this hallucinogen known as bliss that one of the cult leaders uses to control her followers. So how does Kuchera respond to that? Why, he laments that it's a video game trope. I mean, this is a video game, right? And he says it's a failure on the game's part to address the very real opioid epidemic. Are you kidding me? Far Cry 5 needs to make a political point about the heroin crisis facing America before it will let you shoot people hopped up on a fake drug? What planet am I on? Of course, the day after his review came out, Kuchera doubled down on his opinion with a piece titled, "Far Cry 5 doesn't want to offend anyone, so it will end up annoying everyone." First of all, no. This game is only going to annoy a few entitled journalists, and the game did offend someone. Can you guess who I'm talking about? His name is Ben Kuchera. This piece includes a lot of other quotes from other reviewers, other butthurt journalists that were sad to find out that this game isn't the white supremacist murder simulator they were hoping it was going to be. And let's be honest, that's what a lot of these journalists wanted this game to end up being. Also, I find it hilarious that Polygon, a site whose entire shtick is to get offended over games, is upset that a game isn't offensive enough. The layers of irony here are enough to make an irony lasagna. Best of all is that the piece that Kuchera wrote laments Far Cry 5 for not taking a political stand one way or the other and instead being, you know, an accessible game that anyone, regardless of political leaning, can enjoy. And Kuchera's argument there is disingenuous at best. Had Far Cry 5 taken a stance that disagreed with Polygon's worldview, it would be Polygon and other sites that would be ripping the game apart for not towing the political line the way they think the game should. So no, Kuchera doesn't want Far Cry 5 to take a stand. He wants it to take a stand that adheres to his political viewpoint, and anything less than that is apparently a huge sin. But Polygon isn't the only publication that destroyed Far Cry 5 for its lack of politics. Eurogamer said about Far Cry 5, "There's little sustained investigation of wider social factors like the overlap between militant Christian extremism and white supremacy or sexism. Indeed, the game generally ducks such questions. The cult's ranks are stocked with a mixture of races and genders in what feels like a careful sanitizing of the subject matter." Journalists such as Eurogamer have been crying for years to see greater diversity and inclusion in video games. And when Far Cry 5 delivers that in the form of a racially and gender diverse cult, Eurogamer's like, no thank you. I mean, how do you win? How do you How do you win with these people? I mean, can you just imagine the field day journalists would have if Far Cry 5's cult members were actually part of a white supremacist group? I mean, it would be insane. Of course, Ubisoft wanted to avoid that. First and foremost, video games are escapism. They're a way to get away from the madness of the world and indulge in the madness of a fictional one for a little bit. We already live in a nation that is consumed with politics everywhere you look. And because Far Cry 5 isn't political enough, that's a bad thing? Shouldn't it be a good thing that Far Cry 5 sticks to its traditional wacky and goofy tone instead of being a serious and somber look at the social ills plaguing our society? Now, I have plenty more examples of reviewers taking Far Cry to task for not being political enough, but basically they all parrot the same points. As a matter of fact, it actually feels like a lot of these reviews are written by the same person. It's kind of bizarre. But for what it's worth, I think Far Cry 5 actually does touch on politics a little bit. When speaking to the cultists Joseph and John, for instance, they reference politics and the turmoil that the nation is in today.
Look around you. This world is on the brink. You can feel it in your bones. Look at the headlines. Look who's in charge. You
look at the same news that I do. Do your eyes not fill with horror?
This is the world? This is the world we built for our children? Communities being torn apart? Walls being erected because leaders are too impotent to act.
Furthermore, the characters that you side with are Christians, Republicans, and gun-loving patriots with more American flag apparel than you could ever hope to own. I think Far Cry 5 actually has some subtle political messaging, but it's not a message that game journalists want to hear, and it's a message that says rural Trump supporters can be good people too. Believe it or not. But really, this is a game that was never going to be about anything beyond religious extremism. One of the very first marketing images for Far Cry 5 shows cult members sitting around a table in the fashion of The Last Supper. And on the right side, you can see there's a black dude. If that's not a sign that the game isn't about white supremacist groups, I don't know what is. Game journalists have failed Far Cry 5. They decided to judge it for something that it isn't and never intended to be, instead of reviewing it for what it is, which is a really fun open-world shooter with a great cast of characters and a really cool setting that's fun to explore. I think it's a shame that game journalists have gotten so political that they can't judge a game for what it is and for what a lot of people play it for, which is the fun factor. Maybe they'll learn one day, but somehow I doubt it. Thanks everyone for watching. My name's Jake. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like, comment below. I love seeing your guys' thoughts and responding to you guys. Otherwise, you can engage with me on Twitter. My handle is @FoxelHQ. I'd love to see you guys there. But take care, and I'll see you guys next time.